G'day Sunshine Coast. Matt Drews from Unmuzzled TV. Got some new equipment here. It's a little bit exciting. And today's a little bit exciting for me as well because today I get to introduce Graham Hall.
Hello Sunshine Coast.
Graham's been my counsellor for the last 3 years. And I suppose in many ways he's also been my confidant and a friend in many ways, because I think we live in a world where at times we fear sharing of ourselves to friends and family, and often that's the effect of thinking that there might be guilt attached to that and shame attached to that. And the reason that I'm here introducing Graham to you all today is that recently I discovered a video by an amazing woman called Brené Brown, and she did a video release on a YouTube channel called TED Talks, and it's called The Power of Vulnerability by Brené Brown. Now, for me, this was it was life-changing. She really presented an extremely succinct and clear piece of information on why we as human beings struggle to connect, and why we're becoming more and more disconnected, whether it be in our family life or our community life or whatever the case may be. And I suppose really, Graham, and this is where I'm valuing Graham's feedback, and as a professional, in the industry of helping people. Mm-hmm. I said to Graham last week, I truly value his opinion. He's helped me through personal challenges, depression, deep depression. I was on antidepressants for a very long time, and that journey has led me to discover a lot of things. It truly birthed Unmuzzled TV, and it culminated in, as I say, finding Brené Brown's video, The Power of Vulnerability. So, Graham, I mean, I think a lot of people don't understand, the principles of what a counsellor does. Mm-hmm. From talking to people over time, I've found that there's a perception that talking to a counsellor makes you weak,
Yeah, I think that's a very common perception within some groups in society, unfortunately. If I come back to the point about Brené Brown's post or talk, vulnerability is, I think, one of the most valuable strengths that we have as a person, as a human being, mm-hmm. because to allow ourselves to be vulnerable puts us at risk of being rejected, and it takes a strong person to put themselves in such a risky situation with maybe only some essence or guess of whether or not what they're risking is actually going to pay off.
Yes.
It's a tough thing for many people to do. So the alternative is to say, I'm going to be tough, I'm going to be strong and hide all of that away. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, those tend to be the people that I end up talking with a lot.
Because that internalization and that need to prove that you're always right, even when you're filled with doubts, reaches a fullness where you can't internalize anything anymore, and it kind of results in a break or a...
Sometimes, for some people, that's what it becomes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I suppose, look, the purpose of today's video, truly, and Graham and I discussed this before we started shooting, is to try and say to the Sunshine Coast, there's no shame in reaching out for help. It's a little known fact that the Sunshine Coast actually has the highest rate of suicide in Queensland, and it's quite an alarming statistic when we think of how amazing and beautiful our Sunshine Coast is. Yeah. It's the one commonality we all have. The Sunshine Coast is growing rapidly, and most people come here, whether you've come here as I have 3.5 years ago, or whether your parents came here and you're being raised here, or your great-grandparents, or, you know, the very first people that ever arrived. There's a reason we came, and that's because it is a beautiful part of the world. I think the commonality we have is that we want to raise our families here, that we've seen that the places we've come from across Australia and across the world simply don't have all of the things that the Sunshine Coast has to offer. And in essence, I just want to express to each and every one of you, if you're struggling, if you're suffering inside and you're internalizing your vulnerability and you're scared to let go, or ashamed, and you know what, Graham, that's a really pertinent point. Shame and fear and all of these things are such deconstructive.
They are, well, especially given the amount of stigma that there still resides in throughout Australia, and in particular societies like this one, or communities like this one.
Yes.
People hide themselves. We all do it. It's a reality. It's part of everyday life for every one of us.
Yes.
You know, we come to work, we go to school, we do whatever we do through the day, and most of the time we're wearing a mask, a facade of who we are. It's very important that we actually have people in our life that we can expose who we really are to.
Yes.
You know, and when we can do that, it's actually quite liberating, because we know that we're acceptable.
Yes. For our vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Because at
As
the
a
end
whole
of the day,
person.
yeah, precisely. No, by all means. I mean, I can't emphasize enough. Please, in the link below, in this video, you'll find a link to Brené Brown's The Power of Vulnerability. It is a very powerful message. But you know, look, coming back to this, if you don't have people that you can bear yourself to, that the step to growing as a person, being vulnerable and being comfortable to be vulnerable with people who won't judge you, who won't inflict shame upon you for admitting and sharing your faults and your flaws and the things that you may not be proud of, then the very first step is to go to your GP. Many people don't know that there is free sessions available through Medicare. All you've got to do is talk to your GP and say, look, I'm struggling, I'm not coping. It doesn't have to be suicidal thoughts. It can just simply be that your state of mind is deconstructive in your day. You might be, you don't understand why you're so angry all the time. You don't understand why, you know, you can feel that there's things in you or in your family or in your workplace that aren't right, but you don't know how to approach them. Well, the first step is to just pop into your GP, tell them how you feel, say to them you'd like to talk to someone like Graham, you'd like to talk to a counsellor, and start the process of trying to understand how this turmoil has come into your heart. See your GP, get a referral. All GPs are able to refer you to
a psychologist or a social worker.
Exactly. And take that first step. Sunshine Coast, I've travelled the personal journey that was certainly something that I may share with you all day, but it was challenging. It had me in some very dark places. And I just want to publicly thank Graham for bringing me on the journey that he has. I've had to reiterate this in my mind quite a few times so I didn't tear up on camera, and not that that's something that I'm scared to do. Graham's seen me weep in here like a little baby at times, but that's necessary. It's necessary for us to grow and to be vulnerable. And if you can't find someone to do that with, and you feel like everyone's going to judge you, come and see a psychologist, come and see a counsellor, because the intrinsic part of their role, Graham, is to not judge.
Exactly, but hopefully help you find a way through.
Exactly. So look, thank you very much for watching. Graham, thank you for stepping out in this, what's probably a quite unusual thing for
That's true.
a counsellor or psychologist to do.
Yeah.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart for the journey that we've been on together that's allowed me to grow into the person that I am today. I'm far from perfect, Sunshine Coast. None of us are. It's our imperfections that actually make us beautiful. So, you know, take that first step. See your GP, get a referral, and, you know, as an individual and then as a family, I believe that this growth can help us not only grow as people, but grow as a community as a whole. I'm Matt Druce from Unmuzzled TV. This is Graham Hall. In many ways, my confidant, and certainly at times he's been my saviour, and he's allowed me to be here today. Graham, thank you so much for your time.
You're very, very welcome, Matt.
Pleasure. Thank you, Sunshine Coast.